What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me for the part 2 broadcast today of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I did the morning show. I'm not used to being up early. You could probably tell I am used to being up early, just not on my days off. So, I am bringing you the latest edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Earlier today, I talked about the possibility that the Buffalo Bills might be closing in on their final candidate for the head coaching position. Finding their right fit for their franchise could be announced as soon as today or tomorrow or the next day, as Sean McDermott could be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills. My reaction, my take to that news. But before I got that news, I made a post on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Facebook page with a photo that was done by my friend Mike Costello. He made a Photoshop version of Rex Ryan with my face in it, in a picture of Rex Ryan and Nickel Roby. So that caused me to come up with an idea for this episode of the Thomas Take. What would Ryan Thomas do as the head coach / GM of the Buffalo Bills? Now that they have their head coach, I can't really say head coach, so we'll go more towards the GM side with a little bit of the head coaching side as well. What would I do if I was in charge of the Buffalo Bills football operations? So, there is not enough time in 13 minutes to say what I would do fully. There's a lot of things I would do. But the first thing I would do would be to look towards rebuilding the defense, going back to the 4-3, which was so successful in the 2 years that Mike Pettin and Jim Schwartz were here. We have the personnel for it. We have the right guys on the roster now that fit that scheme better. That's why Rex Ryan did not work out, in a nutshell. And that was really essentially why he was fired. The 3-4 Rex Ryan 4-6 defense did not fit the personnel that was on the defense. The personnel on the defense is not that good anyway, in my eyes. Depth-wise, it's very limited, especially in the safety department and the secondary department. Their corners were heavily relied on when they are corners that are not the most shutdown guys in the first place. So, I'd go back to the 4-3, go back to a four-man front, put Shaq Lawson at defensive end, put Jerry Hughes at defensive end. That's where they are best at. Go with Kyle Williams if he decides to return. Go with Marcel Darius if he decides to get his head out of his butt and move forward. As far as their offense goes, their offense is one-dimensional. They have a run game. They have no passing game whatsoever. So I would look to bolster the passing game. Cut ties with Tyrod Taylor. Cut ties with E.J. Manuel. Start over from scratch. Decide not to pay Tyrod Taylor the contract that should have never been written in the first place. I was a harsh critic of the contract. I thought it was ridiculous. I was heavily criticized by a lot of the Thomas Take fans, you could say, that I was being too harsh on the Tyrod Taylor deal, that I was being too harsh on Tyrod Taylor. In hindsight, I was right. I hate to say it, but love to say it. I was right. The Tyrod Taylor extension was a mistake. As structured as it was, he did not meet the requirements of meeting the majority of the rest of the contract. So really, it was a $6 million pay raise for a quarterback that regressed heavily and didn't necessarily deserve the pay raise in general, in my eyes. So I would move on from Tyrod Taylor, move on from E.J. Manuel, obviously. Cardio Jones would then be the only quarterback left on the roster. And you look at the free agent quarterbacks that are out there. Tony Romo is a possibility in a trade. Phillip Rivers is a possibility, I think, in a trade. Jay Cutler is a possibility as a free agent. What is Jay Cutler's motivation level at this point? That's a highly debated topic. But I feel if you show actual interest in Jay Cutler, he would then be interested to play. The Bears have been kicking the tires on keeping him or letting him go, and that has led to him being complacent and lackadaisical and lazy as their franchise quarterback. But when you have the national media in Chicago saying that they want you gone, when you have the fans saying that they want you gone, and you're still there, it would be pretty hard to become distracted. And I think that we have seen that in spades. I'm not going to, make 100% excuses for Jay Cutler. He has shown that he just does not care, and he's there to get a paycheck. But I think if a team shows actual interest in Jay Cutler being in the quarterback room, then he would then be excited to be a part of a team. You really go back to his days in Denver. Denver kicked the tires on him. He was drafted under one regime, then another regime came in, flipped the whole script of the team, and Jay Cutler was traded. So, I think that there is something there. I wouldn't say sign Jay Cutler, but I would say kick the tires on Jay Cutler during the offseason. See where he is at mentally, physically, and bring him in, possibly, on the cheap. Excuse me one sec. Bring him in possibly on the cheap. Bring him in as a guy that can possibly be the stopgap for the next couple years. Tony Romo, I think, would actually be number one on my list. If I was talking about a guy that they should try to go after, I would try to go after Tony Romo. And most people say, why would I do that when he has had the injuries that he has had? I would do that because when Tony Romo has a run game, it actually helps him tremendously as far as staying healthy. One of the reasons why Tony Romo has been hurt time and time again is because Dallas relied on him so heavily during the first few years of his career. He was dropping back a lot, throwing more than just about any passer in the league besides Matt Stafford. He was leaving himself open to be hurt with the amount of times he was throwing more than the average quarterback. So I think with a run game, with a decent offensive line, I think that he would be okay. And obviously they do need to add another receiver as far as a number 2 wideout. Robert Woods, I don't know if he's the bona fide number 2. Chris Hogan departing for the Patriots hurt the Bills tremendously. And I think that needs to be looked at as well. But to have the first-ranked passing attack, the first-ranked running attack 2 years in a row, there's a lot to build off of. LaShawn McCoy is one of the premier backs in the league. I do think he's got 2, maybe 3 good years left in the tank. And I think that they should look towards finding that replacement. I don't know if Mike Gillislee is that guy. And I think that they should look towards maybe drafting a running back in the middle rounds of this year's draft, 2nd, 3rd round. Carlos Williams was supposed to be that guy. That didn't happen, obviously. So I would look towards adding another running back. There's quite a few good ones in this year's draft, more so in the first round than any round. But I think that there's some good guys in the middle there that could contribute. First guy that I think of is Devonta Freeman, I believe his name is, from Texas. Deonta Freeman from Texas. He's a big back, 220, 230, powerful, and he has actual agility. Reminds me of a Jay Ajayi type guy, and that's what the Bills would kind of need, a power type back that has some elusiveness. Not quite a LaShawn McCoy in terms of elusiveness, but some agility and elusiveness. So, as far as, the head coaching thing, they made their decision on the head coach, but I wanted to put myself in the head coaching role. And I think I would look to use Charles Clay more. Charles Clay was a big investment for the Bills. They had not made a financial investment in the tight end position as a franchise in the franchise's history, like they did with Charles Clay. And they barely used Charles Clay. There was a stat line that said that Charles Clay was the most targeted receiver on the team. He was the healthiest, of course, so that made sense. But as far as actually being targeted, I felt like he was not used at all in the way that he should be used. There's a lot of different ways that you could use Charles Clay. You could use him as a H-back, similar to what Miami did when they used him. They used him as a receiver. They would put him out wide. They would disguise him as a blocking route and then put him out as a passer when the quarterback was under pressure. Just a lot of different things. And I think the Bills have underutilized Charles Clay tremendously since he got here virtually. Towards the tail end of the season, you saw Charles Clay really start to make an impact on their offense. And by then it was too little too late. They were already out of the playoff hunt. The games were completely pointless. And they finished the season 7-9. So they need to get a quarterback that can actually spread the ball around. And Tyrod Taylor is very limited as far as a passer. Athleticism off the charts. Scrambling ability off the charts. The ability to extend plays off the charts. But even within that ability to extend plays, he is so hesitant to find the right target. And we saw that week in and week out during the 2016 season. I've heard people say that, maybe it might be because of Sammy Watkins being hurt, and Robert Woods being hurt in spades, and things like that. But I don't think that should be an excuse. You're a quarterback for a National Football League franchise. You should be able to adapt the offense around the playmakers that are left. Use Charles Clay. Use LaShawn McCoy as a receiver. A guy that they really underutilized in historic fashion was Reggie Bush. They brought in Reggie Bush to be a backup running back to LaShawn McCoy, and they barely utilized him. When they did, it was in the worst moments of the game with the worst play calls, and that led to him being the only running back in National Football League history to finish a season with negative rushing yards. He actually was in the red for the entire season. And that is pathetic. Part of the reason is because Reggie Bush is not that good of a running back anymore. But part of the reason as well is because they did not use Reggie Bush the way that they were supposed to. Reggie Bush is not a downhill runner. He's only shown glimpses of being a downhill runner in his entire NFL career. And he is a passing, receiving back. And they did not use him in that fashion whatsoever. Very, very sparingly, very minimally did they use Reggie Bush as a passing down back. And I thought they would. I thought that's what they brought him in for. I thought they brought him in not so much to be the backup to LaShawn McCoy, let Mike Gillislee take on that role, but for Reggie Bush to be like a replacement to Chris Hogan, a slot receiving back. And that's the way he was used in New Orleans. That's the way he was used sparingly in Detroit. And the Bills just did not use him the right way or use him at all. So there's a lot of things, too. The wide receiver position needs to be upgraded. The safety position is one that is so decimated. I think they have the worst safety group in the National Football League. Aaron Williams is a huge question mark as to whether he will come back. Corey Graham is long in the tooth. Jonathan Meeks is not good. The safeties are bad. They're bad safeties. They really need to look to add to that department in the offseason. So that is my take on what I would do as the NFL Buffalo Bills GM or coach. Maybe possibly look to the draft. First guy that comes to mind is Deshaun Watson after their performance in the BCS championship game. I'm also high on Chad Kelly as well, maybe in the later rounds. Take care, guys. That was the Thomas Take.